Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and this time I've got a full tank review for you on the Tier 8 Swedish tank destroyer, the UDES 03. Now this is a very exciting vehicle because it's the first tank that you reach in the game that has access to the new hydro-pneumatic suspension that all of the high-tier Swedish tank destroyers have. And that allows you to elevate and depress the front and back of your vehicle to be able to gain whole new angles of fire on your opponents. That makes the UDES a very exciting vehicle to play for the first time. But as if that wasn't enough, the vehicle also has the best camo rating of any Tier 5 plus tank in the game, and is also the joint most accurate, making it a sniper's dream. If that sounds like your cup of tea, stick around. I've got some ace tanker gameplay coming right up, and if you have no interest in buying one of the high-tier Swedish tank destroyers, then I'll let you know some tips and tricks as to how to take them out effectively on the battlefield. So let's compare the UDES to a variety of other Tier 8 tank destroyers: the Soviet Su-101, the French AMX AC-48, the British Charioteer, but keep in mind that one has a fully traversable turret, and also the Soviet ISU-152. But before we compare, there's one important thing that we should highlight about the UDES, and that is that its statistics change when you enter the siege mode. We can see that its DPM increases by 12%. Its aim time also halves from 3 seconds to 1.5 seconds, and its accuracy improves from 0.35, which would be quite okay, to an incredible 0.25. Furthermore, inside the siege mode, we can see that your effective traverse speed actually increases, so if you're trying to be able to stop somebody from flanking you, you should stay in the siege mode in this tank. But as we can see here, the mobility of the tank is absolutely crippled in the siege mode, down to 5 kilometers an hour forwards and backwards. So let's see how 2,271 DPM stacks up. Well, unfortunately, even in siege mode, we can see that the UDES has the lowest DPM in this comparison, massively less than the Su-101 and significantly less than the ISU-152. But one thing that is utterly fantastic about this tank is the penetration on its standard rounds. 288mm of penetration is better than even the ISU-152's 152mm shells, and 20 better than the awesome APCR rounds that the Charioteer gets. The alpha damage is right in the middle. 390 is better than the 100mm on the Su-101, but obviously can't compete with the ISU-152. 390 alpha damage does feel rather nice at Tier 8. So as I mentioned, the UDES fires APCR rounds as standard, and these have got a very nice shell velocity at 1,385 meters a second. That's not quite as good as the Charioteer, but makes all of the other vehicles feel really sluggish. And if you do choose to use your premium APCR rounds on this vehicle, then you're going to have 1,560 meters a second shell velocity, as well as increasing the penetration up to 330. So what about the weapon handling of the UDES? Well, as I mentioned, when you enter the siege mode in this tank, your aim time goes down to 1.5 seconds, which is way better than all of the other vehicles, and your accuracy goes down to 0.25, which, as I said, was joint best in the game, along with the Tier 10 Swedish tank destroyer. The aim time and accuracy is something truly spectacular on the high-tier Swedish tank destroyers, and when you get used to it, really nothing else quite compares in the game. Now on to the mobility, and it's great news for the UDES. This vehicle goes at 70 kilometers an hour, putting it right up there as one of the fastest vehicles in the game, irrelevant of it being a tank destroyer. And furthermore, the UDES can go backwards at 50 kilometers an hour, which is pretty much as fast as all of the other vehicles can go forwards. This allows you to chase down opponents and also control the range of engagement, which is something that you're going to have to do if you want to excel in this vehicle. Furthermore, the power to weight ratio on this tank is awesome, considering the ground resistances are not all that bad, and this allows you to vault up slopes like a little demon. I'll be showing you that in some gameplay in just a minute. We can see here that the tank's effective traverse speed doesn't look very good compared to the Su-101, the 48 or the Charioteer, but way better than the ISU. But remember, when this vehicle enters the siege mode, the traverse speed jumps up to 35 on hard, 31 degrees a second on medium, and 17 on soft, and that makes it more comparable to the other vehicles, but it really does feel like the traverse speed on this tank is something that lets it down. So far you might be saying, shut up and take my money. Most accurate gun, super high penetration, crazy mobility, practically no aim time, able to go backwards as fast as other tanks can go forwards. What could possibly go wrong? Oh, and before I forget, let me also mention this vehicle does have 14 degrees of gun depression when you are in siege mode. But alas, when we look at the armor profile of the tank, you might be horrified. This vehicle has 20mm of all-round protection, and that means that all 61mm caliber guns and higher, which pretty much every Tier 6 tank plus has that the UDES can meet, will overmatch the armor irrelevant of the armor angling. And this can be incredibly frustrating in the UDES. The well-angled armor should have been awesome if Wargaming had made their 9.17 overmatch changes. But alas, they didn't, and so that means that the UDES just gets overmatched. And also, if it gets hit by artillery, well, what do you think 20mm of protection is going to do? This is a one-shot target for pretty much every self-propelled gun that you will meet. And so keep that in mind when you are shooting at the UDES. It doesn't matter how well it's angling its armor. And one thing that I love to do against vehicles that you can overmatch the side armor on is just shoot the front of the tracks. Even when angled like this, you'll take the tracks off and also overmatch the side armor. That would be something that you couldn't do to a vehicle unless you can overmatch it. And also keep in mind that because the UDES can't traverse its gun left and right and only point the gun upwards and downwards, if you track this tank, it's not going to be able to aim its gun at you reliably. So apart from that, the vehicle has 1,000 hit points. That's pretty much the same as all of the tier 8 tank destroyers. They're certainly not very durable, and it's not until you hit tier 9 that you start to have decent hit points on your tank destroyers. And furthermore, the vehicle's view range is a rather disappointing 350 meters, so you definitely want to be taking binoculars on this vehicle to bump that up. But there's one thing that I must highlight about the UDES, and that is that it has the best camo rating of any vehicle tier 5 and up while stationary. In fact, when you get this vehicle completely kitted out with a Camo Net vehicle camo crew skill, improved vents, brothers in arms, even a consumable, you are going to have 70% camo when you're stationary. And that means that a vehicle with even 500 meters view range is not going to see you right up until 180 meters. And I should also mention that the low profile nature of the UDES gives it one of the best camo ratings also when moving. In fact, the UDES has better camo rating than the tier 8 American light tank, the T49. And remember, light tanks have the same camo rating when they're stationary and moving. That's one of their class benefits. And so for the UDES to be able to outperform the T49 when moving, when it's meant to have that special class light tank ability, is absolutely crazy. And it's not all that much less than the T54 lightweight and even the most sneaky tanks in the game like the RU and the AMX 1390. So what kind of equipment do I recommend using on the UDES? Well, number one, take a medium tank caliber gun rammer because you want to fire 10% faster, right? And secondly, definitely take binocular telescope on this vehicle for the increased view range because your base 350 meters is very poor and you want to try and spot your opponents at as long range as possible. And next, when it comes down to the third slot on this tank, I think there are two viable options. Number one, you could take improved ventilation class 2. This will make pretty much everything about your tank about 2.5% better. But personally for me, I think if any tank in the game is going to use a camouflage net, it has to be the UDES. And this camouflage net has a profound impact on the concealment of the vehicle, increasing its stationary camo rating by 15% and also its camo rating when firing by 3%. Because the UDES's low alpha damage means that it has to fire very often. And because the tank has absolutely no armor, you want to remain hidden and firing for as long as possible. And so this means when it comes to crew skills, I recommend you take camouflage first on your UDES crew, then try and rush and get Sixth Sense on your commander, then retrain for brothers in arms, and then you probably want to be starting to take repairs as well, just to give yourself that little bit extra. When it comes to consumables on this tank, what a lot of people like to do is to take 2 repair kits on your Swedish tank destroyers. And that is because you've got so low hit points on the UDES at 1,000, then you're gonna die after pretty much 2 or 3 shots anyway. So the chances of your crew members getting knocked out is negligible, but remember, when your tracks are off, you're locked in place, and then you aren't able to continue to fight because you can't traverse your tank. For your driver, it's going to be a similar story. I recommend taking camouflage. In retrospect, I would probably take clutch braking instead of off-road driving in this tank, and then retrain for brothers in arms once you have Sixth Sense and brothers in arms on your commander. When it comes to the radio operator, camouflage and situational awareness will also help to increase your view range a little bit, and then probably start taking repairs as well, although squeezing on safe stowage on your radio operator might be very useful at avoiding ammo racks. But again, I think on a tank with 1,000 hit points, you're pretty much dead after a couple of shots anyway, and you can probably use one of your repair kits to just put your ammo rack back into action. But anyway, I think that's quite enough theory crafting. Let's get stuck into some gameplay. So here we go, I'm rolling out on El Haloof in the worst possible matchmaking for this tank. I'm playing against some tier 10 vehicles on the enemy team and also 2 tier 9 self-propelled guns. You know what, that bad Chatillon 155-55. Sure, it doesn't have the highest penetration, sure it doesn't have the highest alpha damage, but with its rate of fire, and it's pretty much always going to penetrate the UDES and one-shot it, it is certainly something to watch out for. So I'm going to be racing forwards into position, and now I'm going to press my X key. Now you can see a little timer, it takes 2 seconds to enter the siege mode, and as we can see, the whole of the back of the tank goes up, which allows us to put our first shot into the WZ-131. Now you'll notice that I left the siege mode and I pulled back there because I'm just so terrified about getting spotted. If I get spotted, it's very likely that tank destroyers on the enemy team are going to be taking off most of my hit points. Or alternatively, the self-propelled gun is going to start to target my location. Although that was a pretty good blind shot there, taking out some of the vision on the enemy team. The T-54 lightweight obliges taking out the second light tank as well. You know what, if you can take out light tanks on the enemy team in your UDES at the start of the game, that just allows you to be so much more aggressive with your shots. Do you see the aim time on this tank? It's just absolutely awesome. This thing is a pure sniping monster. It really is. With that 1.5 seconds aim time, fairly good gun dispersion values, and that 0.25 accuracy. Oh my word. You know what, I've been playing the STRV 1030 a lot recently, having completed my grind out of the UDES, and I really do miss this tank. I want to get a good crew in it again, but I don't know about you guys, but there's just so many tanks to play right now. It used to be the case that I had more than enough time to twiddle my thumbs, train the crews and the tanks that I really wanted to, but now with Wargaming really ramping up the production of non-premium tanks as well as premium tanks, I guess, there's just not enough time in the day to be able to play tanks, right? Okay, so we actually ricochet off the front plate of the Leopard 1 there. Rather disappointing, but now we're going to be going for the Indian Panzer. Oh, you're just so reliable in this tank. Even when you're ricocheting off tanks, you do feel like you're reliable. After playing this tank for a little while, really, you will feel like nothing else kind of compares in this vehicle. Not sure if that one hits the Indian Panzer. Let's see when he reappears. We've already done 406 damage to him. He should be on half health if we did hit him. Looks like I did. Yeah, he's down to 581 hit points, poor lad. And it looks like the Bulldog managed to put a flanking shot into him. Am I going to shoot these buildings out here? I'm quite tempted watching it back now, but it looks like I'm going to be patient. Will we hit the Indian Panzer? Oh, I'm not going to blind fire. Outrageous. I thought I was going to go for another blind fire there. That would have made it the second kill of the game without spotting the enemy tanks. So let me tell you why I'm kind of leaving the siege mode, going back in the siege mode. As soon as I felt that in this tank that if you do sit there and keep your binoculars activated, keep your camo net activated, that sure, you're more likely to not get spotted. And also remember that your DPM when you're in the siege mode is 13% better than when you're not in the siege mode. And so effectively by leaving the siege mode, I'm lowering my the speed that I get the shell in the tank for the next shot, which is obviously not desirable. But the risk that... Oh, that one doesn't hit. We can see the shell flying straight through there. But the risk that you take by sitting in the siege mode and not being ready to run away with the 2 seconds delay is just, it's too much, I think, and it's worth losing that little bit of an extra rate of fire that you get if you think even there's a chance that you're going to get spotted, even in the most sneaky tank in the game. And I don't think I've actually been spotted so far, but obviously I've been going into and out of the siege mode religiously, just because of that fear that I would get spotted. And if I do, then I'm pretty much going to be taken out this game. And that's something that I really recommend that you do as well. If you do have a corner that you can reverse behind, it is far faster to leave the siege mode and then you stop that 5 kilometers an hour backwards and forwards limitation on your tank. To be able to reverse from here to here with 5 kilometers an hour, I think is going to take me longer than leaving the siege mode as soon as I fire and then pulling back around the corner, limited only at 50 kilometers an hour and not 5 kilometers an hour. Will we hit this in Leopard prototype? Not quite. We're just going to be holding in here. So here we're going to have a bit of a break in the combat. Oh, well, momentarily, as this Leopard 1 decides that he wants to come and be a little bit cheeky. That was 350 meters that we fired that shot. And even though I pulled back around the corner, the Leopard didn't actually spot me. That's rather impressive. The Leopard has 400 meters base view range. And you know what, if he's using things like fence or coated optics, he's probably going to be going up more in the region of about 440 meters view range. To not get spotted at 350 there, it's just absolutely awesome in this tank. And I guess even though I am pulling back as if I was going to be spotted, the fact that I'm not getting spotted, they're not going to start to try and blind fire the bush. They're going to start to wonder where the shells are coming in from. They're going to allow me to continue to get easy shots in here. And so even though I probably would be able to pull back if I did get spotted before they could react and shoot me, I'm just remaining hidden, and that's really what this vehicle needs to do. You don't have the first miss, I believe, of the game of a shot that I probably could have hit there. Thought the Leopard was going to continue, but he did pull back. And that really is how you need to play the UDES. A lot of you might be thinking, oh god, this tank looks so boring, just sniping all day long. All he's done is driven into one spot and now he's just sniping. But really, that's how this tank is played. It's probably one of the most horrific tanks that I have played for trying to be aggressive, because you can't depress the gun at all. You can only elevate the gun on this tank, and that's a luxury because the tier 9 and the tier 10 Swedish tank destroyers can't elevate the gun without also elevating the hull. To be able to elevate the hull, you have to be in the siege mode. But with that 3 seconds aim time, the mediocre DPM, not really very good, even your accuracy isn't even that good outside of the siege mode. It just feels so awkward to assault anything in this tank. Sure, there are limitations of the aim time there. That would have been hilarious if that one had snapped in. Look at this right now. Look at how this tank is just depressing as we hit the Indian Panzer there. And that really is the power of this siege mode. Getting those 14 degrees of gun depression, the tank lurching up the rear of the vehicle to be able to depress to take out the tier 8 German medium. Sure, we've only picked up 1 kill so far, but 2,800 damage and all of my hit points maintained in this game. You know what, we're doing pretty well. We're certainly going to have to watch out, though, because there is a super unicorn and also a very good player in the TVP who's called Bugged Noob. I like that name. Who seems to be tearing up the northern flank, and I'm just hoping that Centurion Action 10 can hold. Now we're going to have a swing at the AMX 48 that we did hit earlier, and when you've got 288mm of penetration, those kind of angles that maybe would have ricocheted a vehicle with less penetration certainly do still go in. And oh, not lucky days for him. Managed to finish off the 48, picking up our second blind kill of the game, I believe. Now going to be aiming up the slope to see if we can harass the Leopard 1 and the Leopard prototype as they're being hounded down by the Walker Bulldog. But looks like the Walker Bulldog does some good work as he takes out the Leopard prototype. But oh gosh, is that Leopard going to be able to hold? Looks like the Bulldog hits the Leopard once more, but he's a one-shot now. He probably can't advance up the slope. And I'm not sure if it's the UDES who's situated in this part of the map who's shooting them right now, or alternatively it's the Leopard who's getting in good shots. Leopard finishes off the 46 pattern, and oh no, this is starting to look rather grave as the flank has fallen. I'm really hoping that the Bulldog falls back and the Leopard gets overconfident and goes down the slope, but it doesn't seem to be happening. Now, I know I'm camping really hard here, guys, but when I played the UDES for the first 10-15 games, I was doing the charity marathon stream, and I was so excited to play this tank that I was just trying to go in, try and be all cheeky with the siege mode, race in, enter the siege mode, and then try and shoot it out. And the amount of frustration that I had and realization that this is probably one of the most pure long-range tanks in the game. And if you try and play it up close and personal, you are pretty much damning yourself to probably a terrible result. Oh, well, look, exactly like that UDES did. He went aggressive, he went to go take out the Bulldog, and he gets double tapped, once by me and once by the WTR of Panzer IV. That kind of puts us right back into this game, to be honest. If that UDES had just hung around up on that ridge, he would have stopped us from preparing in advance, I should say. And a great shot there by our artillery finishes off that Leopard, which now allows me to advance. And this is what I recommend that you do. You only start to use the UDES towards the midpoint or towards the latter part of the game, where then you feel like everything's a little bit more controlled. There are less uncertainties, right? There are less people who could spot you, who could ambush you. And hopefully where everyone's had their hit points grinded down, so that now you can start to make effective trades. And indeed, the tier 10 tanks on the enemy team have had their hit points grinded down. And it's a good thing too, because that TVP can kill me within 4.5 seconds of the first shot. And if the FV215B decides to load those 120mm penetration HESH shells on his high explosive slot there, then he is going to be able to take me out in a couple of shots as well. And God, let's not even mention what those artillery are going to do to me. But you know what, with 5 minutes left on the game, and considering we're playing an encounter, the only chance is to assault. And we're also going to see some quite cool things about the UDES and how it can be played towards the end here. Now, one thing that I recommend in the UDES is you do not set up and slowly go over a slope, because only people who are completely out of position are ever going to allow you to shoot them. What I recommend you do in the UDES is get into position, just say, damn it, I'm going to take the shot, but I'm certainly going to kill you as well. And the FV215B actually fluffs the shot there, and we managed to shut him down. Great result for us, putting us firmly into this game. Now on 4,250 damage that we have spotted, 3 kills, and now it's a case of let's go and mop up the artillery. Great ambush there. Luckily, the artillery misses us. And a good job by the WTR Panzer IV as well, who managed to shut down the TVP, and he didn't even take a shot for it. Now remember what I was telling you about this crazy 70 kilometers an hour top speed limit on the UDES, excellent power to weight ratio. It can allow you to get into some rather funky positions, like all the way up here. Really, there's some amazing cliff climbing opportunities with the UDES. Some of them did get me into a hell of a lot of trouble, but others were rather remarkable for the vehicle. And this is where, like, nobody expects the UDES to be up there. That artillery is trying to run away from us, and this is where you want to be in this tank. 0.25 accuracy. You just feel so much safer shooting in this tank. And you know what, we're not even going to show the shot on the M53-55 there. Just take a look at how awesome this tank looks, exposing so little of its vehicle. Can you imagine if they hadn't made the if they had made the overmatch changes as well? That even at 20 millimeters thick, that plate could probably angle very well indeed. Now, one thing I must say about the end of this game is right now I'm about to make a catastrophic mistake. I'm playing on encounter. What does that mean? Well, now I'm playing on encounter. It takes, I guess, let's think 200 seconds to be able to cap for a single player. So that's 3 minutes and 20 seconds. But just look at the ramp up that is possible with the UDES. You can just sneak around the map in ways that other tanks simply couldn't. But back to the capping situation. And here you go, look inside the siege mode. Look how slow this is. Now you guys might notice why I leave the siege mode when I want to pull back round the corner. Don't spot the artillery, so instead I'm going to race out. So anyway, it takes 3 minutes and 20 seconds for a single tank to be able to cap. And obviously I guess it's going to take, gosh, what is it going to take? It's going to take the normal amount of time, right? It's going to take 1 minute and 40 seconds for 2 tanks to be able to cap on encounter. And what I've effectively done now is doomed our team to either winning or drawing here. Whereas if I had decided to go straight into the cap circle, I would have probably guaranteed the win for the team. And now there are only 2 minutes left on the game. I don't think I can even reach the cap circle in time to still have 1 minute and 40 seconds left. You can see I'm thinking about it, thinking what a mistake I've made. I'm going to go over this ridge line. Am I going to enter the siege mode to activate my binoculars? If we don't spot the artillery, I've got to think quick. We've literally got 1 minute and 50 seconds left to be able to find this artillery. I've made a big mistake, but luckily we do find him. We're loading an APCR round. Will we roll high? Probably should have fired high explosive in this situation. Will he come back round? Oh, 0.25 accuracy. Leave the siege mode. Hard right, forwards. Yeah, good. He misses us. And now we're in a rather... Well, actually, he could go down the cliff, and this could be rather awkward at this stage of the game. He's on 20 hit points. You know what? A ram would be enough to take him out right now. Is he going to try and slip down the slope? He's trying to run away from us the best he can. Doesn't look like he wants to get himself killed. Oh, this is where it's very awkward to not be able to depress the gun in the siege mode. But we do manage to hit him with the tiny little bit of elevation the tank has. And it looks like I get myself stuck at the end of the game as well, which could be quite awkward, as we see the Batchat slip down the slope to a watery grave. So a borderline greedy play at the end of the game, but do you know what? I was just so happy to get my ace tanker in the UDES because I had nearly unlocked the SDRV 1030, and I knew that I was going to move my crew out of the tank, and it feels like such a massive relief when you do get an ace tanker in a vehicle, when you know that you're probably not going to be playing too many more games in it. So this was a high caliber in our +2 match, making 5,600 damage dealt, 1,551 base, which is great for a tier 8 vehicle. And I'm not sure if we fired any premium ammunition this game. Doesn't look like we did, so we make 42,000 credits profit. Sure, the first 8 minutes of this replay were rather slow, but that's how you're going to have to play the UDES. This is a pure sniping tank, and as soon as it starts to bomb it around the map and play aggressively, it's just asking for trouble. And that's certainly something that I have to work on. My patience in World of Tanks is probably at an all-time low right about now, and that's something that I tried to work on as hard as I could when I was playing the UDES, and with some tremendous results. And so this meant that I ended up with some fairly impressive statistics in this tank. I managed to win 68% of 73 games playing solo, and that is a very healthy win ratio in this tank. Now, one thing that is absolutely bizarre is the amount of average damage that I did in this vehicle is lower than I usually would do in my tier 8 tank destroyers. It's 2,273. And when we compare this to, for example, my ISU 152, which was one of the first tier 8 tank destroyers that I ever played, that's sitting at 2,625 damage. And I would have thought, at least with the player that I am now, that I should be doing way more with the UDES than I would be doing with the ISU. And I believe that's because if you play defensively in this tank, sure, you're going to have those situations where your team go on and win and you maybe only pick up like 1,000 damage. But more often than not, by surviving, relocating intelligently and trying to play that support sniping role, you can influence a lot of the very close games to be in your team's favor. And doing so with the incredible camo, the sniping finesse of the UDES, rather than using things with raw power like the ISU 152. So would I recommend the UDES for everyone? No, certainly not. This is a rather tricky tank and requires a specialist playstyle to be able to excel in. And I think a player who's more used to medium and heavy tanks and is looking to maybe branch out and play some more flexible tank destroyers, then you might want to look towards the Charioteer, which is an absolute incredible tier 8 British turreted tank destroyer. Nevertheless, the UDES is a very novel tank and will appeal to all of the snipers out there who are certainly going to be in for a treat. And so hopefully you enjoyed this video, or maybe it was just useful. If it was, please give it a like and let me know in the comments everything that you think about the UDES. Do you think it's a great tank? Do you think it's a terrible tank? Have you played it? Did you like it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.